Are you ready for a brand new DC update? All right, you heard it here first. Michael Cera has been cast as Superman. Now, that's the last story we're going to talk about. I have quite a few photos to go through, and we're going to go through these one by one, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts at the end of this video. First of all, I wanted to let everybody know I've been busy with taxes. I got raked over the coals by the U.S. government, so that was fun. And I've also had it out with my HOA where I live, possibly turning into a legal battle. So there's fun things brewing over in my world. But I am back with some new updates, and here is the first. The first picture here, confirmed, Jimmy Olsen will appear in James Gunn's Superman Legacy. I would hope so. That would only make sense if it is a movie about Superman. Now, you've seen a lot of people online hate the fact that Jimmy Olsen was wasted in the Snyderverse, that they had him killed the first time we saw him. People need to realize that that was not Jimmy Olsen. That was a CIA operative who was going under the name of Jimmy Olsen. All right, so it was not Jimmy Olsen. We never saw Jimmy Olsen in the Snyderverse. So people need to realize that, but anything to hate on the Snyderverse. All right, now here's something interesting that was posted by Snyder Queen, and this is from Geekosity Mag. It says, sequel to Ezra Miller's The Flash already has a script, which is actually something I heard about a long time ago. And the comments here, think about this, is rebooting the DC universe to become DCU and not continuing any DCEU story? Do you think that if The Flash makes $750 million plus at the box office, that Warner Brothers Discovery isn't going to want to greenlight a sequel where there's already a script for it written? Yeah, obviously there are some logistical problems with what James Gunn's universe is doing, and this could be one of them. If this movie makes money, that's going to cause some problems for the studio because people are going to, they're going to want this type of comic book movie, and it would be dumb to keep some people and not others. I don't see how Ezra Miller is going to stay in there, and they're getting rid of all the other people, the good people. But we're going to see what happens when this movie gets released. I still think it's going to have a hit because of the decisions of Warner Brothers Discovery, and we're actually going to look at a photo later, which is interesting. All right, now this is something I was interested in. So Netflix's The Sandman Season 2 gets an update from Neil Gaiman. All right. It's nice to know that this show is coming back because the first season was something pretty unique, and it was well done. The one thing about Netflix is they make some stellar programs. Everything that the MCU did over on Netflix was amazing. This show was very interesting, and it definitely opened up a whole bunch of storylines where they could continue this moving forward. And I'm glad it's staying at Netflix and that we will see a season 2. So here's something interesting. It said that Zack Snyder, when he was doing that interview for that pizza interview with the Russo brothers, he stated that 80% of the revenue for Batman vs. Superman came from the director's cut. That would include, all the digital sales, the 4K sales, the Blu-ray sales. I will never watch the theatrical cut of Batman vs. Superman, even though it's out there and included with the disc. This is the only version that makes sense. And it shows you that if the studio would have stayed out of the way and released that version of the film, again, we'd be in a different position today. The studios butchered Ayer's films. They butchered Zack Snyder's movie. And because of that, it was not well received by the audience, which was represented by the massive drop after the first weekend that this film got released, but it still went on to almost make $1 billion, which there aren't any superhero films right now that are making that kind of money outside of Spider-Man. So this is interesting. This came across just the other day that Warner Brothers is blaming James Gunn's reboot announcement as a reason why Shazam 2 failed. Well, why not? I mean, this was the #1 reason why this movie tanked at the box office, and I can't understand why people can't see that. Warner Brothers blames James Gunn's DC reboot for some of Shazam 2's poor performance. You think? Yeah. When you tell everybody that you're rebooting everything and you have 3 films still released on your slate coming out, you don't think that this is going to affect the sales? That is business 101. If they really were going to do a full reboot and do what they were doing, they shouldn't have announced that until next year after, they could have been, actually developing these things behind the scenes and just waited until after Aquaman gets released in December. But instead, they sit here and they blamed everyone and everyone else under the sun for the problems of the poor performance of Shazam, and now they finally get to the real reason why it failed. All right, so Superman Legacy is actually going to film, I believe, in Alberta, Canada, starting early or later this year, I think in December or something like that. And it says, as pre-production ramps up, DC is finalizing details on the filming of Superman Legacy. So the filming location and start date have been set. It's been floating around the internet. I believe it's starting either late this year or early next year, which is going to be interesting. They're going to have to get moving on that if they want it to come out and be on time. But as James Gunn has stated, if things are not ready, they will hold off. And I will not be surprised if that July 2025 date gets moved. But we will find out shortly. Now, I thought this was interesting. There's a lot of iteration of Superman out there right now that are available. And someone asked James Gunn directly, James Gunn, let's see if he sees this, Superman into the Superverse. And they misspelled Superverse. I do that a lot in my tweets too. But they could include a bunch of different people and they could do something pretty cool with this, as they could with the Batman universe as well. And James Gunn, clapped at it. So that's pretty interesting. I just thought I'd include that in there as, he's still out there every once in a while poking his head around. Now here's a brand new photo of Superman that was released by Zack Snyder on his Vero account. So we have coming up this week is going to be the Snyder Con, which is, everybody's excited for. There is a rumor that Henry Cavill is supposed to be there, but it's just a rumor at this stage. Nothing has been substantiated. We will find out, as we get closer. And, I've had a lot of people ask me about streaming it. Are there any details? And there hasn't been anything released just yet. But here's a brand new image of Henry Cavill as Superman. I might start using that images in my thumbnails from now on. All right, now this is something that was just posted. James Gunn has come out and he talked about Superman Legacy and the casting and everything. And he says, we have some incredible choices. I'm incredibly excited and relieved. DC CEO James Gunn about his Superman casting for the upcoming Superman Legacy film. And he has a bunch of people in place for his team. He's not the head of casting. He's out. He's going to be doing this whole Guardians of the Galaxy thing here for like the next 3 to 4 weeks, and then he will fully be in the DC camp after that, hopefully, until, the DVD sales and home video sales come out for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But he's got his foot in both camps right now, or his feet in both camps, and he's definitely stretched thin. And it bothers me as a DC fan that all of his energy isn't devoted to DC at this stage, but he does have prior commitments he does have to meet. All right, so here you go, guys. Michael Cera has been cast as Superman, Clark Kent, in James Gunn's Superman Legacy. You heard it here. Source was James Gunn. Absolutely. Oh, this has the internet on fire right now, but let's look at the top. This looks like there is an account called Discussing Film. This is not Discussing Film. This is a parody account called Disbussing Film. This is a joke, guys. This is not happening. If this happened, it would be DOA. Everybody knows that. He is not being cast as Superman. But this shows you how easy it is for people to be duped on Twitter. You've got to look at the sources. And this here is interesting. People jumped on this, and there were people asking, is this really happening? Is it happening? It's not happening. He would never be hired as Superman. That is not going to happen. All right, so there's the news for the day. And it's really hilarious, all of the misinformation that is being tossed around out there and how many people actually fall for it. Stuff I'm reporting here on my channel. I'm not a scooper, and I've told people that many times. I am gathering information from everywhere and bringing it to you. And until I see things from more than one source, I'm not going to report on it. So a lot of people wanted to know where my sources were for the whole Superman, Henry Cavill being at the SnyderCon. I saw that from several different people. I'm not going to reveal those sources, but they are out there, and they're out there for other people to see as well. And it was reported by more than one credible source. So is it happening? I don't know. Nobody knows, and I stated that in my last video, that I don't know. Nobody does. We'll find out when the SnyderCon hits next weekend. But we'll see what's going to happen coming up. Now, the state of everything. It's really interesting. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, and something that's fascinating, is David Ayer's Suicide Squad script got fully leaked on Twitter yesterday. You can actually go and find that post, and you might want to grab it before it disappears because the studio may end up taking it down. And now I haven't read it personally, and I'm not going to read it because I fully expect that one day we're going to see David Ayer's Suicide Squad. But it's supposedly phenomenal, and it was mainly about the origin of Harley Quinn. And it was going to have a crap ton of the Joker in it, and it was going to tie into, Justice League and everything. Everything was one coherent story until the studio came in and butchered everything. And, there was a lot of people out there saying, let James Gunn cook. Let him do his thing. Was that type of attitude awarded to David Ayer and Zack Snyder? It certainly was not. The studio came in and ruined everything. Now, James Gunn says he is the studio, which is not really the case. He is supposedly, and I say this because there's definitely other people in charge, the head of DC Studios. But you have to remember, he's the head of DC Studios. There is a group outside of that. There are other executives that are a part of this as well. And back when this all went down, David Zaslav said there are 5 people that are involved with these decisions. There's himself, there's Pam Abdy, Mike DeLuca, you've got Peter Safran, and James Gunn. It's a 5-person committee. But James Gunn and Peter Safran have been given the keys basically to the DC side of this. But you still have Pam Abdy and Mike DeLuca off to the side. And if you don't think they're not going to be utilized, you are sorely mistaken because David Zaslav said there is a plan B if things don't go well, and things aren't looking good. In fact, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is looking for an abysmal weekend. Like, it's not going to do well. It could do even worse than Ant-Man 3 did. So we're going to see what happens going forward. I think a lot of people have become tired of this game. And I posted about, our movie news, which is a very popular channel here on Twitter, and they do some amazing videos. They posted the question today that, do you think that the reboot announcement really had anything to do with the poor performance of stuff? And, that wasn't the specific question. It was, are you excited for, basically what's coming up in the future? And I said, honestly, the way I see the DCU at this stage, it's hard to be excited. There's nothing. I don't have a whole lot of hope for the future. I'm hoping I am pleasantly surprised, but I'm still going to continue to bring the news as it comes out, and I'm still fully engaged. I love the DC Universe, and we will see what happens going forward. There's my video for the day. I do appreciate the support. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you will be notified as I have new videos go up.